Awesome. Well, I think it's 7:15 our time, so 6:15. So we may as well get started. So, hi. Welcome to our session on how to leverage tech tools to build community in your classroom. If you'd like to access the slides and follow along, Rachel, are you able to share or do you want me to share?
Yep. I'm putting it in the chat as we speak.
Perfect. So the link will be there in the chat for you. We have some different resources that are linked in the slide deck as well. So feel free to grab a copy so that you can access those after the session. So let's go ahead and get started. Awesome. Oh, I'm going first. I knew that.
Yes.
So my name is Katie Atwell. I'm a department head and teacher for English and ESL here in the Halton District School Board in Ontario, Canada. I have been podcasting with Rachel for over a year now, and we worked together as well for quite a few years prior to that. So yeah, that's who I am.
And I'm Rachel Johnson. So I'm an innovation coach with the Halton District School Board in Ontario, Canada. And it's funny that we're saying like where we work and where we're located, because in our podcast, we keep it like really kind of tight-lipped and don't really say what board we work for because we like to keep things separated. So yeah, it's kind of fun that we're revealing that here. Yeah, I'm a Google certified trainer. I'm also a leader in the Global Google Educator Group. And as Katie said, you know, we've been podcasting together for over a year now on the EduGals podcast. And we kind of nerd out on all things educational technology and sort of even dive into some of just the main kind of topics in education and things that kind of pop up as we go. And we also write blog posts, we create video tutorials. So yeah, feel free to check out our website if you're interested. I'll drop the link at some point in the chat. But yeah, that's who we are. So before we dive in today, because we're talking about building community, we kind of just want to start with a check-in with everyone. So because we're Canadian, we've got a Canadian reference here. If you have not watched Schitt's Creek, you must go watch this. This is like a superb show. You've seen it, right, Katie?
Obviously.
Okay. Thank goodness. So yeah, so we're doing a scale of David. And so on a scale of David, just let us know in the chat how you're feeling. So just you can type in the number into the chat and we'll give you a second to do that. Oh, thank goodness. I always worry about doing a Schitt's Creek reference. I think it's getting big outside of Canada now, but it was very much a Canadian thing for a while.
Yeah.
Dan Levy is amazing.
Shannon, 2:15 your time? Holy moly cannolis.
Wow. That's dedication.
Yep.
Okay, well, I think we got everybody because we're a pretty small group here, but so we're seeing some 5s, some 1s, some 3s. I would say I'm a 5 because I'm pretty excited about sharing our session today. What would you say you are at, Katie?
I'm between a 5 and a 2 because I am such an introvert that this is also very scary for me. So so there you go.
This is actually the first time we've presented together at a conference. So that's pretty awesome. But yeah, so this is a really great check-in. And the reason we wanted to start with this is it's a good icebreaker. It's also a really nice way to do these kind of check-ins with your students, just to get a pulse on how they're feeling for that day and how ready they are to engage and learn in your class. And it really only takes a few minutes to do one of these, and it goes a long way in building relationships in that community in your classroom. And I think it would be even fun to get your students creating some of these scales and like highlighting different scales on each day and having some of their voice in there as well. So yeah,
great. And I've seen them with words as well. So you can add like the actual adjective to the image, especially for language learners or those who can't read facial expressions really well. So it's kind of a neat way to kind of also bring that together and tie that in. Okay. So next we are going to have you answer a question in the chat. And we're actually going to use one of the strategies that we like to use, especially when we're stuck doing virtual teaching or remote, because that has been quite tough. So we're going to do a waterfall chat. And what it is we'll show you the question, and then we'll get you to type it into the chat without actually hitting enter. And then we'll do a bit of a countdown. And then once I do that countdown, everybody hits enter at the same time. And then all of the answers will stream in all at once. So it's a neat concept, and we'll explain a little more afterwards. But what is your goal for building community is our question. So we'll give you a couple of seconds. Well, more than a couple. Most people done? I see one person saying yes. Okay, so let's do a countdown from 5, just in case somebody's still typing. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hit enter. Nice. To get to know the students and have them know me. Yep. Every learner feels empowered and valued, so that everyone is comfortable with each other, sharing all the things, and then learning background cultures. Nice. Yeah, and I think that these are a lot of the things that come naturally when you kind of meaningfully try to build community. But yeah, so there's a couple of reasons why we do this in kind of this way. And so the waterfall chat, it lets people take, a beat to kind of think about it and start typing an answer. And then there's less pressure of, oh, look at what they said. I want it to sound better than that. Or, maybe they're not too sure of what their answer is going to sound like. It's everybody hitting enter at once. So there's a lot less pressure. So yeah, I find that I get way more students participating when we do it this way, because they're not really paying attention to who else is putting what, and they're not worried about duplicating an answer. Awesome. Okay, so yeah, let's as I typically say, let's dive into what we're taking a look at today. We're gonna look at basically the what of community building, and then the why, and then we're going to spend most of our time in the how of community building. Now, we have shared the slide deck with you in the chat. We'll share it again in case you haven't got that, but it is in the agenda as well. And we'll see how many we get through in the how, with ending at on the hour, but yeah, we'll see where we get to. You can take a look at the slide deck anyway and see what sort of resources are in there if we don't get to everything today. So we'll begin with the what of community building. And I really like this quote here. This quote here actually came from an article that Katie and I wrote together that's going to be coming out in hopefully a couple months, but it says a positive classroom community is established when students feel valued, safe, and represented. And I think we could say that if there's anything we've learned over the course of COVID-19 and the constant shifting from in-person to remote and back again, is the importance of a positive classroom community. And so we want our students to feel valued. We want them to feel safe and respected in their classrooms. And, this is when students are actively taking risks and making mistakes and really engaging in the learning. And as we kind of go through some of the examples today and different activities that you can do, I think it's important that we keep in mind that building positive community is not a one and done activity. It does take real effort and continuous commitment to build and foster those relationships throughout the course of the school year. And not only that, but every classroom is going to look different because every teacher is different. Every student group is different. So what works for one might not work for others, and that's okay.
It's really important to kind of reflect on what your strengths are, what you bring to the classroom, and build from there. So some of the things might not work for you, and then some others might. So we just kind of want to put that out there before we dive into some specific examples.
Mm-hmm. And next up, we're going to share the why of community building. So as we were kind of brainstorming and putting some stuff together, the big things that kind of stuck out to us were these 4 main reasons for community building. So we have communication. So a strong classroom community really does foster communication. Students are less afraid to share and to speak, and they're more comfortable with each other and with the teacher. So participating doesn't feel as high risk as perhaps it would if you don't have that tight knit, like strong community in your classroom. The next reason is collaboration. Community is all about relationships. So if we want students to be able to work together in group work, even just kind of sharing ideas, discussions, etc., you really need to put in the work to make sure that you have that strong community so that students are actually willing to work together and to participate, to do all of that. Social emotional. So a strong community lends itself to social emotional learning for students. So when I think social emotional, I'm thinking knowing about themselves, learning more about themselves, the people around them, interpersonal communication skills, self-awareness, empathy. And so when we have these community building activities, it's important that we allow our students to share a little bit about who they are. And where they are, where they come from, and their strengths, and this idea of sharing with each other, it really helps them to develop these really important skills as they're moving forward. And then safe and inclusive. It's really closely related to social emotional, but by building a strong community, you are creating a safe and inclusive learning environment for all of our students. Thank you. We made it in Canva. We love Canva.
Yes, I'm obsessed with Canva. So everything, yeah, all of our visuals are made there. Okay, so let's take a look at some of the hows, because I think that's what we're here for, is ideas and different strategies and things that we can do to build community in our classroom. We do have 8 main categories. Like I said, we might not get to all of them, and that's okay. You've got the slide deck and the resources for you, so you can go take a look at those ideas afterwards if we don't get to all of them. But we are going to take a look at, we've kind of divided it up into types of tools and then what you can do with those types of tools. So we're going to look at screencasting, audio recording, chat, collaborative workspaces, survey and quizzing tools, interactive whiteboards, video conferencing tools, and your learning management system. So like I said, we'll see how many we get through, and we do have the slides shared there as a resource for you if we don't.
Okay, so the first one is screencasting tools. We talk about Screencastify all the time on our podcast because we love it so much, but there's also Screencast-O-Matic, Explain Everything, Loom, and WeVideo. It doesn't really matter which one you use. What I typically say is, what do you have access to? What are you comfortable with? Because it's not about the tool, it's about what you do with it that matters. So find the tool that you like and that you're allowed to use and go with it. So the idea here, we've given some different ways that a teacher can use it, as well as student uses. And the main thing that kind of sticks out to us, and I learned this quite quickly doing remote this past year, include your face and voice wherever possible. So it really helps students to know that you're a real human being, especially if you're remote, because everybody's behind a screen. It allows them to hear tone and expression, which is super important for many of our learners, especially English language learners. And it also models how to speak, how to explain yourself, even how to complete a certain task or tool if you're using it to show an exemplar. So students using these tools, it really helps them to gain confidence and work towards real-time presentations or explanations. It can be very challenging and nerve-wracking for students to kind of do presentations or to explain things aloud in real time. So by kind of scaffolding it and allowing them to use these screencasting tools, they can really slowly work, or even quickly, it depends on the student, they can work towards getting their comfort level up and their confidence level. And then they're more willing to share.
Mhm. Yeah, and I really love these as well. I'm just going to add in a couple of thoughts here myself, but the ones that stand out to me are using them in maybe even non-traditional ways. So answering student questions using video. If a student sends you an email, I have found that by answering with a video, it goes so much further than just typing out a reply. Plus, it's actually quicker for me. And so I'll do that for emails. I'll do that for emails with students. I'll also do that with emails with staff, especially in some of my coaching work. And yeah, doing that, or even giving feedback for assessment and evaluation through using video. It's huge in terms of building relationships with your students.
I've also used it to show some of my English language learners how to pronounce words, like how to actually physically move their mouth. Because remote learning was really hard for a lot of my students, because I do teach English as a second language. So it was neat because I could record it and then they could go back and say, oh, that TH sound, what do I have to do? And so then it would make it easier for them as well. There's so much that you can do. It's really awesome.
Yeah, I think we could talk about Screencast-5 for a while, but we'll move on. So next up is audio recording tools. I think some of the two kind of biggest ones that come up when we think about audio recording tools is Mote. If you haven't tried out Mote yet, it's so great for doing quick little audio clips. Works really great, integrates well with Google Workspace. So even some of those emails you get from students, you could just reply back with a Mote instead, and it's super quick. There's also voice recording notes that you can do in Google Read and Write as well. So if you have that added and are working within there, then that's another really, really great tool. But yeah, in terms of teacher and student uses, I think a lot of the uses do kind of overlap what screencasting tools do, because they're getting to the same types of things. So you can use, as a teacher, use it for feedback or replying to emails. I kind of really like Mote. If you have access to some of the premium features, you can get transcripts already auto done for you, and then they can also be translated into different languages. So that's really neat in Mote. And then Katie could probably speak to Google Read and Write a little bit better than I can.
Yeah, there's lots of different features in Read and Write. For using it for the voice tool, it inserts it as a link. It's a hyperlink.
Yeah. But then I also really love the Mote extension integration into Google Slides. So if you're making a Google Slides and you want to add in some audio instructions in there, or even have students recording some audio replies, reflections, things like that back to you, then it's super quick and very, very easy to use. So audio is great to add in there, especially if you want something super quick. Now we created this example. So this is just an example of taking some of those screencasting tools along with the audio recording tools and integrating them into, say, your agenda slide that you might use for the beginning of your class.
Yeah, so I'm not sure, is the video embedded there? It's black.
It is. I just have to click on it and flip over. I will actually share. So this is from a template from Slidesmania, which is amazing. We'll share the link to the template in the chat. You can also click on that example in the slide deck itself.
Yeah, it's hyperlinked, I think.
Yeah. But yeah, there's lots of different morning meetings. This is just one example of a Slidesmania template. So all we've done here, kind of just to show you an example, is embedded in a welcome message. We've got a quote for inspiration, video instructions. So maybe the video instructions are talking about what you're going to be engaging in terms of your learning for the day, or maybe it's some instructions about how to get started. We've also got a community building type question here. So a would you rather, which is kind of fun. It could be nice to have this up, and as your students are coming into the meet, they could be answering the would you rather question, and then also maybe explaining why in the chat, why they would pick one or the other. And then we've also got a little audio sample here. So just to show you like how you could integrate that as well. I'm curious, would you rather skydive or bungee jump?
Skydive. Yeah.
Skydive.
I have done skydiving and I would do it again. I would never do bungee jumping. Nice. That's awesome.
I don't know if I would do either, actually. I'm so I think, I don't know. What's going to feel like it goes faster? Anyway, we're digressing.
Excellent question. I know. Awesome. So next up, we want to talk about chat tools. We know that a lot of the video conferencing have chat tools embedded right within their tools. Sometimes it's nice to have a separate one so that students can access it differently and use it differently. So we'll talk a little bit. We have 4 that we've highlighted here. There's lots, but these are 4 that we know of. So Remind, Slack, Discord, and Google Chat are the 4 that we have the icons for there. And in terms of how to use them, so teacher uses individual check-ins and feedback. And this goes kind of back and forth, because if a student has you added on one of these messaging platforms, they can actually ask in a really low risk way questions. And then you can then give them feedback. So they can clarify instructions. They can say, hey, miss, I don't really get this. And kind of get that answered. Debating. I love Google Chat. I know that's, but we're a Google Workspace board. So that's why we do. But my students like it because then they can communicate with me more personally, and it's not in front of all of their peers. So they're not embarrassed about asking questions. You can also have class messages. You can have a whole room chat. And for some reason, students really enjoy chat separately from different video conferencing, whatnot, versus doing it on the LMS or whatever else. It's very strange. I don't know if it's just my group, but they really do enjoy it because they can add the app to their phone and away they go. But yeah, so get to know you questions, you can send those out and then have students respond. And then that way you have some more info about who they are and what they like. Chat for asynchronous or synchronous is key there. So it doesn't just have to be for an asynchronous course. It's just as valuable for a synchronous learning course. And then for students, collaborating with one another. So group work, it's really great. And then social connection, which has been huge this year, especially with COVID. We went back and forth, remote, home, etc. So it really allowed students to kind of stay in touch outside of class time. And I think I've already said the other 2. So there we go.
Yeah, and it's nice to use something like Google Chat. I mean, I know you can do private messages and things like Zoom. Google Meet, we can't. And no. As Katie said, we're a Google Workspace board. So having those chat tools is being so much more invaluable for us, for students to be able to reach out privately to us if they have questions.
So this is an example of what you can throw into a chat. You can, 2 kinds of people, tell us, are you number 1 or are you number 2? And then you can have them answer that question. And there's been a lot of heated debates. I know. Yep. I agree. Some people say 1. I don't understand it. But yeah, so you can throw anything like this. And it's kind of a neat little icebreaker. It gets people talking and gets them more comfortable.
I'm just waiting to see if anyone else.
Those 1 people are monsters.
I was going to say, we often use this for staff PD. We use
Yeah.
this one as like an icebreaker activity because it's a quick thing to do. And we always say that, say if you're a 1 or a 2, but there is a wrong answer for this one in particular. So we agree. All right, moving on to collaborative workspaces then. So these are your collaboration tools. So if you're in Google Workspace, these are things like your Google Docs, your slides, your drawings. We kind of like just stuck with those 3 here because we have talked about some of the other Google tools outside of the actual collaborative workspaces. So we're just going to focus on those ones here. And then if you're a Microsoft district, then things like Word or PowerPoint can be used as well. And so thinking about some of those uses in terms of teacher uses and student uses, I'm a big fan of HyperDocs. So if you haven't tried out HyperDocs yet, I really love these. And I use these for a number of years when I was an e-learning teacher and everything was done asynchronously. And it was so great to get that back and forth dialogue between you and the student. And it really helped to build our classroom community, especially because I never had a meet with these students, like never virtually met with them unless they reached out and asked me questions. You could also do things. Another big one I really like is creating feedback stickers. They're kind of fun and just a nice little way to be able to add a bit of personality to your feedback on student work. So I'll usually make those in Google Drawings and then add my Bitmojis because I like to add my Bitmojis, but you could also add GIFs or, even just a picture of yourself if you wanted to. There's lots of fun ways that you can create those. You could also create all kinds of games and resources with these different tools for students. I mean, collaborating on different tasks and projects, like these tools are absolutely essential to be able to do that collaboration piece, as well as we like it for peer editing and feedback, as well as crowdsourcing. So I'll often set up a set of Google Slides, and then I'll have my students, because I am a science teacher, so I'll have them pick one of the questions from a problem set that we're working on, and then they would record their solution to that using Screencastify, for example, and then they would stick them in Google Slides, and then I would get them each kind of leaving comments for each other in terms of peer feedback for their solutions and stuff like that. So we got a lot of back and forth dialogue using that type of strategy.
And you can even integrate the audio with the peer editing and feedback, which is always kind of neat.
Yeah, so there's lots of really great ways to use those collaborative workspaces. As I said, I'm a big fan of the Bitmoji stickers. They are so great for feedback. I actually have a couple of things to share with you. So I have this template that I created for the background for the Google Drawing. And if I just open this here, what you're going to do with that template is you're just going to go to the blue Use Template button. And then if it's pretty much sized, ready to use. And then you can just drag and drop, say, your Bitmoji from your Chrome extension. So I've got my Chrome extension here. Maybe I want, you to reveal, can't say it. We're just going to go with it. You can just pretty much drag and drop them, though, from your Bitmoji extension and then just resize them. So I usually make them a bit smaller. I center them in there. And then to put them on student work, I usually create a folder on my desktop where I have all the PNG images. So you can download each of these if you go to File, Download, and then I pick PNG so I get the nice transparent background. And then I just drop them on student work, and they love them. They love to see all the different sort of variety of Bitmoji stickers that they get as feedback. But we won't spend too long on this. So I do have article that I'll share with you if you want to learn a little bit more about how to create them and how to use them. Oh, I got to switch back to the slides.
There we go. Awesome. So the next one we want to talk about are survey or quizzing tools. So the three that we kind of have here are Google Forms, Microsoft Forms, or SurveyMonkey. There's lots of others out there, but those are just a few. And then we'll go next. So teacher uses, especially at the beginning of a course or the year, getting to know you surveys. That's a really quick way and a really great way to kind of let students give you some of that, the important information that you need. And also you get to know them a little bit. Social emotional check-ins. So these are great to kind of check in with students, see how they're doing, etc. And then they can share if they're having a hard time with something, etc. Rachel has dropped in the template folder, I believe, into the chat there.
Yep.
And then you can also have it for student feedback and student questions. So they're kind of, I don't know, I find them helpful because I know my students know, hey, we're going to be getting a form. I can give Ms. Atwell some feedback as to how this assignment went, maybe some different ways that she could explain it better, or different ways to approach it.
A big favorite of mine is curating favorite songs. So I always ask my students at the beginning of the year, and then I also give them opportunities throughout the semester too, to submit their favorite songs as long as they're school appropriate. I give them the whole spiel about it needs to be school appropriate. I always listen to the songs before I curate the playlist myself, just to make sure that the content is okay. But then I end up creating class playlists. And so there's a lot of hands-on type work in a science classroom. So whenever we're doing something hands-on, like a lab or something like that, I'll just put the playlist on in the background and we can listen to their favorite songs as they're kind of working. And so it just, again, adds a little bit of student voice to the classroom. So they get to hear and see themselves represented through music.
Yeah. And the topics one is there because I actually did this with my English as a second language students because I had a mixed group. So they were right from beginning to kind of where they're leaving the program soon. And so I just redesigned the course based on the topics of interest that they liked. And then I just created activities and whatnot, but it was a great way to gather the information. And then we ranked them and had the kids kind of go through. So they actually loved the course because they got to choose what they were learning about, which was kind of neat. But yeah, so that's one way you could use it as well.
All right, we're making our way through them and we still got time, so this is good. So next we're going to talk about interactive whiteboards, which have been essential this year in terms of getting students to collaborate and participate in class. So thinking about some of them, Jamboard is one that we use pretty often in our board, but there's other tools like whiteboard.chat or whiteboard.fi that are really great tools. I haven't used them too much, but I know they've got some amazing, amazing features. And then Microsoft also has their version of a whiteboard tool too. So again, just kind of going with what you have available and what you can use, they all kind of end up serving the same type of purpose. But the reason we love these is in terms of teacher use, I would say that activities for getting to know your students are really, really great in something like Jamboard, especially if you pair it with breakout rooms and have smaller groups go into breakout rooms and sort of discuss some of their answers as they're choosing them in these getting to know you types of activities. So we've got a few linked on the slide deck there. You can go take a look. We've done kind of a couple of those sorts of games, or you could do interactive games. So quick browser search, you're going to pull up so many different examples and templates, but there's things like Pictionary or scavenger hunts, Boggle, Connect 4. I have another one that's think outside the box. So it's at the beginning of a drawing and the students then continue the drawing. You could even just give them a really easy prompt of draw me something that represents, X, Y, or Z.
Yeah.
So you can really do these really quickly and easily, and it doesn't take a lot of setup time, which is really, really great. In terms of student uses, whole class word walls, which Katie would probably speak to better than I, but for learning vocabulary, whether it's specific to academic language or just in terms of building up English conversational language for your English language learners, those are going to be some good uses, as well as brainstorming. Like brainstorming makes sense on Jamboard because it is so interactive. All right, so we do have an example here, and just for sake of time, I think what we're going to do is just get you to put it in the chat for us, but we would like to know, would you rather Brussels sprouts or broccoli? And I've put the link to the template in the chat. So if you want this template, you can go grab a copy. Broccoli.
I'm a Brussels person.
Brussels sprouts, broccoli. Can I say both? I love them both.
I know.
And I come from a British background, so Brussels sprouts are like a big deal in England. And I would say as a kid, I didn't really like them, but I love them now. They're amazing. But I love broccoli too. So yeah. But yeah, something like this is really great just to get conversation flowing, to see sort of a little bit more inside of what your students like and dislike. And so you can make it fun like this, or you can make it more curriculum connected if you want to as well.
Yep. And even just popping these in throughout the course, like it doesn't all have to be on day one, right?
No.
So maybe do one on one day and then another on another. I find that my students really start to relax around everyone the more we do these. They just become way more casual with one another, which is, it's kind of nice to see.
Yeah, and I'm actually reading a book right now. I'm kind of digressing. I tend to do this when we record our podcast, so this is not unusual for me. But I'm reading, what is it called? Culturally Responsive Pedagogy or Teaching and the Brain. I forget the exact title, but it's by Zaretta Hammond. And there's like, it's all linked to neuroscience in terms of building that community and building that trust and respect with your students, and just bringing them to a state where they're ready to learn. It really does go a long way. If you haven't read that book yet, I highly recommend it. It's so good. And I'm only halfway through. All right. I think I'm next,
Awesome.
right?
No, I think it's me.
Oh no, it's you. Okay.
Next up, we have video conferencing tools, which most of us know pretty well by now, but we have Google Meet, Zoom, and Teams there. Those are kind of the main three. In terms of uses, so one way to build community, every time somebody comes in, use their name as they're entering. It makes a big difference. Breakout rooms for individual student feedback. Those are great. It's awesome. And students can also use it to ask questions. They can ask for a breakout room. You can use it with the Open Broadcaster software, so OBS. Rachel knows more about this one, but it's really neat. You can bring in different backgrounds, and go ahead.
Yeah, no, it's awesome. Like I would say, if you want a tool to learn how to use over the summer, this one's a really cool one to dive into, because you can add little ticker tapes that go along the bottom of your screen. You can have different backgrounds. You can switch between different sort of presentation modes. If you have a green screen, you can do even more with it. So it's a really neat tool to couple along with your video conferencing tool.
You want to make sure you co-construct classroom norms. So really kind of go over those with your students right away, and create rules together. Involving them in a lot of that helps them kind of respect the rules a little more, makes them know that they have a voice in that. You can also use video conferencing for a drop-in for extra help. And it can be a way you can just be on there and then they can pop in or pop out as they need extra help. In terms of student uses, breakout rooms for group work, they love it and they find it so much easier because they can actually talk to each other and, start their docs, etc. Using the Q&A feature. So really getting them to interact more with that Q&A feature and the polling. Waterfall answers like we did earlier. And then also social time. Sometimes it's nice to give them a chunk of time where they can actually be social. And a lot of our students, once they're, I think, over grade 4, they can create their own Google Meets and actually talk with one another as well outside of class time.
Mm-hmm. And if you collected some of those songs, their favorite songs at the beginning of the school year, for example, maybe even play those as they're entering in the video meets. Like that's another way that you could make sort of that connection to their likes and prime them and get them ready for learning.
Yeah. And talk about their profile pictures, because I don't know about you, but I barely ever saw any of their faces. So you can talk about their profile pictures and actually comment and ask questions, because it actually became a game where they would keep switching their profile pictures and I'd have to guess what it was about. It was kind of fun. But yeah, just finding ways to
I just wanted to let you know
I think
there's
that means
about 5 minutes.
Yeah, we're good. We're good. We know. Okay, so I think this is our last one is learning management systems. So we'll just kind of go over this really quick because this is just sort of where you're housing all your information. So things like Google Classroom, if you're using that, or Brightspace, which is what we use, or it could be Canvas, Schoology, any kind of learning management system. In terms of teacher uses, though, it's really just about making those connections to the students and showing your teacher presence as much as you can within your learning management system. So things like embedding a welcome video on your homepage or having your students help you with creating your layout for your homepage, or co-creating a custom banner. So it's just really about how you can leverage your learning management system to bring in your student's voice again, as well as make sure you show and plaster your face and your voice everywhere you can to build that connection. So I think we'll just leave it with those ideas there. We do have a podcast episode though coming out that talks all about this on August the 3rd. So if you want to check that out, you can listen to I think a 40-minute conversation about your learning management system. So we've got a couple minutes to wrap up, but before we wrap up, we do want to celebrate your learning today. So we would love it if in the chat, you could just share a new learning or a tiny victory in the chat. So it doesn't have to be big, just something that you are excited about. Our podcast, just to answer your question, is the EduGals podcast, but I'll put our website in the chat too, so you've got that. Katie does really amazing detailed show notes for us on our website, so it's got lots of like screenshots and stuff like that.
Yep. Yeah, I'm more of a visual learner, so that's why, but hey. Yep.
A new pod. Yes. Amazing. Woo.
That's awesome.
Well, I hope y'all don't mind. I'm just going to unmute and say, I feel not justified, verified. Sorry, it's the end of the day. My brain is gone. I'm packing to move. But I have been doing a lot of these things this year. I instituted that specifically because I had, we were half and half, but most of our students chose to stay home. So trying to prepare them for a state exam and all of that. And so I was just like, ugh. So I did reflections. I even created a student agenda and like talk about hyperlinks. Like I hyperlinked the hell out of that thing, but it helped them. And also I could say, okay, we're here now. You can't be lost. We're in the next square. I even color coded them and everything. So thank you for confirming. That's one of the words, confirming that, you know, what I was doing was great. And I was making connection with my kids, but, you know, we have a highly transitory population. So nobody stayed through the entire year. So that was another thing, but I know I was good. I know I was good. It showed me that everything that I was doing. Now I do like the music thing, so I'll be adding that too. But thank you. This was an excellent, excellent presentation.
Oh, thank
Thank
you.
you.
Yeah, Katie, do you
all,
want
I
to?
just wanted to remind you, we would session and sketch, because this has been so informative for all of this. So definitely go on over and send some awesome evaluation.
And if
So
anybody
what
has
Kelly was saying was to please go to Sketch and make sure that you evaluate this session because it was amazing. So thank you to Katie and Rachel. Like, you were great.
Thank you.
Yeah, and thank you for having us. So yeah, if you want to reach out anytime, our email address is on the slides there. Really do reach out to us, or we're on Twitter quite a bit. So you can definitely DM us on Twitter and one of us will get back to you. Yeah, and check out our podcast if you're interested. But thank you so much for coming.
Yes, thank you for making my first presentation not as scary as I thought it would be.